Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast with your hosts Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Divert your phone and grab a brew as Waz and Nic unpack tips, tales, secrets and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside your trade, helping educate and inspire you to break the cycle of gut-busting and money stress and create a true trade business.
G'day, listeners.
Hello, listeners. How are you this day?
I remember the episode we did a few days ago, Coxie. Actually, it was last Tuesday, I think. I remember you saying, "How are you this fine Tuesday morning?" And it was like, well, you've assumed it's fine and that it's morning when our listeners are tuning in. So nice catch there, Coxie.
Any day you wake up is a fine day, surely.
I reckon every day is a great day. They have different opportunities for growth and personal development buried within them, though.
That is the biggest load of waffle I think that's ever come out of your mouth.
Some days suck, and that's okay because there's days that suck and there's days that rock. And today is a day that rocks, Coxie. Do you know why?
Because it's Tuesday and you're talking to me.
Now that is called sifting through the dirt to find the gold, isn't it?
I'm a great big nugget of gold. Great big nugget of something.
No, today's a great day because it's another day ending in Y, and I woke up this morning and I'm alive and the sun came up again, even though I can't see it behind the clouds, but I know it's there. It's glowing, a big ball of flame in the sky, and we get to have another day at having a crack at stuff, getting better at trying things, listeners. It's every day is another opportunity to just get a little better or try a little harder or think a little deeper. So you can tell that I've been out in the wilds in the last 24 hours.
This is very – I'm not even going to try and say it on Tuesday morning. I'll bumble the word.
Philosophical?
Thank you. You've been thinking very deep over the weekend, Warwick. Extra day's rest has done you a world of good. You've come back refreshed and renewed.
That's an interesting concept, isn't it, Coxie?
It is an interesting
fancy that. And yes, I love a bit of forest bathing. Mrs. Waz and I headed over to the west coast of Tassie. Well, not the actual coast. Like they refer to it as the west coast, which is an area the size of probably Greenland or something. But out into the wilds up near Cradle Mountain. We went for a beautiful walk and we saw waterfalls. And usually I do a bit of thinking and pondering. And I just come back feeling a little more hopeful, I think, Coxie.
Oh, this is refreshing and deeply pleasing.
And nothing at all like what we talked about in our episode plan.
No. We can do that tomorrow.
But it is... I was pondering this morning over my coffee after doing my mobility session. It's about hope, I think, Nick. I was reading some comments in our groups and I was actually messaging with a couple of our members, and one of them's going through a pretty tough time at the moment, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was messaging him this morning at about I don't know, it would have been 5:30, 5:45.
Yep.
Tradie hour. What's that? Sorry.
That's tradie hour.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, that's when they're jumping on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just encouraged that person to, I guess, keep the hope going and be hopeful and not be too hard on oneself. And, you know, as I said at the end, it was a cheesy quote that falling down is compulsory and getting back up is optional. And I find that opportunity we have to stand up again every time is actually a little point of personal power. You know, we can actually choose when the government's telling us we're not allowed to do this and that, and we have to stay 1.5 meters away, and we've got all sorts of shenanigans going on in the building and construction industry and other trade industries, automotive. You know, there's all these regulations and the economy, blah, 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 blah. The thing that can't ever be taken away is our choice to keep going or to choose how we want to see things. And as cheesy as my intro to this podcast may have sounded, it's me choosing to be hopeful for all sorts of things. And it feels quite powerful, Coxie.
It's pretty hard to find hope sometimes, Warwick.
Oh, people say that. I'm gonna grab hold of that and give it a shake.
Then I might take you back though, because let's be pretty. Let's lay ourselves bare a little bit in this episode, or I'm throwing the challenge down at your feet, actually, because I would have thought in some of the conversations you and I have been having in the last few weeks that hope can be very hard to find. So I look forward to hearing you challenge that one. I'm going to challenge you right back.
I think that was a left hook you just threw.
Yeah, but you duck and weave really well.
I'm about to as well. I agree with you that, well, actually, I don't agree that it's hard to find. I think hope is everywhere. Hope's right under our noses. I think what's hard and what I have found personally incredibly difficult over the years at various times is to acknowledge the fact that it exists and to choose it because it, in some weird, warped way, feels better to be or feel hopeless and to feel despair and exasperation and frustration. They just become such automatic responses that I actually think the difficulty is in acknowledging that hope is under our noses. Like it always has been for me in my life. And when I look back over some of the times where I've capitulated and felt like I couldn't go on, and quite a number of those times I've probably reached out to you and other important people in my life, that I think what they've done is pointed out that, hey, it's right there in front of you. You just got to pick it up, mate. And that's been really hard, Coxie.
Yeah, it is hard. I think that's the point. It's sometimes it's really easy to, I'm going to say the word wallow, but that's not always applicable. Sometimes it's just much easier to be stuck because we don't have to be vulnerable or brave enough to look outside of where we're sitting and see that there is hope. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to ask for help. It's hard to admit to yourself or others that there's a problem, or you're facing a tough time, or even just that you felt like shit for a good period of time and you want to feel better. Sometimes it's hard, difficult, challenging to put your hand up and be that vulnerable to start to look again for the hope. So I do agree with you, and I'm going to throw that at you lots of times in the future.
You're going to remind me of this next time I send you a message like, Coxie, I don't want to play today. Everything's shit and I'm out.
I will be sending you a message to remind you, are you looking for the hope here today, Warwick? Or are we just...
Have you listened to episode 140 of our podcast? Might be a good reminder.
We, through extreme pressure here in our household, we found some great ways to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. So through a particularly rough period in our life, we found that, the 3 a.m. wake up, or actually it was more like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, those nights, those times when things are so stressful and so difficult, it feels like, or it's easy to only see that there's nowhere to turn or nowhere to go, nobody to talk to. You're full of shame and guilt and all of those horrible feelings that I would hope nobody ever has to feel. We had to find some tools because the two of us were in it for the first time ever. It's not often that I capitulate. I've been blessed with a sunny disposition, which means that I can normally find the hope at my feet pretty quickly. Need to get stuck very often. But for this period of time, there was a good 3 months where the two of us, my husband and I, were incredibly stuck, and we had to force ourselves to find some tools. And those tools were the simplest of things. They were things like putting on a podcast. So at 1:00 when we would wake up, rather than sit there and discuss the stuff that hadn't changed from the 3 weeks beforehand and was really out of our hands and we could do nothing about, we chose to put on a podcast. Now, there were some parameters around that podcast, and a lot of them were reminding us that there was hope. So it was finding the positive podcast, and there's plenty out there that would remind us, in the depths of the morning when you're feeling the worst, because there's nothing lonelier than being awake at that time and worried. Those podcasts were like a light that meant that we could rest, I suppose. We rarely slept, but we could rest again. And then that tool became a tool that we used all day, every day. It wasn't just a tool that we would use at nighttime anymore. It'd be anytime we couldn't control our thoughts anymore. We would put on a really positive podcast, and it'd be something, we'd share it. Like we'd agree that this is we'd listen to this particular podcast or this particular episode this week, so that we then had something positive to talk about together. So it was a little tool that we could find and use in our day-to-day lives that nobody needed to know about. I still haven't shared a lot of what went on in that time for our family, but we could personally start to work on finding a little bit of hope that, it just was at our feet, really. And as you well know, the world was well and truly coming down around our shoulders. But you can still find hope. There is always some small little bit of something that you can be grateful for. And as wanky as now I'm sounding, that gratitude and that hope is enough to, I guess, keep shining the light on the path to get out of where you're at, one step at a time.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we say things like, oh, it's really wanky or woo-woo or whatever. And yet I think a lot of people have found, sadly, through the Rona and the upheaval of the last, probably 12 months for a lot of people here in Australia. We had, drought and bushfires, the last 20 years. But through a lot of that, I think people are realizing that the woo-woo and the wanky stuff, in inverted commas, is actually in a lot of cases, the most important stuff, but it's certainly what makes the biggest difference. Because getting a grip on the woo-woo means you can actually keep your grip on all the other stuff in your life. The finances, the team issues, the stuff going on with kids and schooling and ex-spouses and, sick animals and all sorts of things that face us on a day-to-day basis. Without the woo-woo, that stuff gets really, really hard. And that's when, to come back to what we've been talking about in this episode, that's when I think it gets really difficult for people, including me, to just look down at our feet and go, wow, there's all this hope down there. I don't know how to pick it up, or I don't think I can, or I haven't learned how to. So I, not surprisingly, agree with you. Did I just change my position to agree with you, Nicole? Is that what just happened there? I feel like I've just been, what's the term for that?
I don't know, but I'm glad that you pointed it out because I was coming with it.
But definitely fostering hope. I've read a lot of stuff over the years, and most recently by some sort of pop psychologists, that hope is really dangerous, and you shouldn't use hope as a thing to keep you going. And it's like, well, without it, what is there?
There's know
things like purpose and meaning, and that's fine too. I think they're really critical aspects of continuing on as a business owner and a parent and a partner, as a human. But I feel like hope is one of those things that just, it's like an injection of smiles and energy and possibility. It's like if you're clinging to hope and you don't have the other aspects of life in order, then that can be, I think it can be not enough. Hope alone. But a life without hope, to me, is a pretty dull life.
I think meaning and purpose can be much harder to find than hope, and often hope is the shortcut to getting to meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
Because through hope, we have a reason to get up and strive. And that helps with our sense of meaning and purpose. They're all, I mean, it's a big giant roundabout, and we've spoken a lot about roundabouts in one form or another in the last 2 weeks.
I
But
usually get stuck on them a lot on these episodes.
we do. But without hope, the meaning has less. Purpose has less. You need hope to find the drive, I suppose, to find the meaning and the purpose. I feel that it's the critical element, and it's the minimum of what we all need, with a little bit of hope that, one day I'll get a holiday, or I'm going to keep working and try and find a way to communicate with my partner, or oh my goodness, my whole world feels like it's falling down. I just can't put a foot right. But you know what? Gosh, it's a beautiful day out there today. Have a look at that sunset. Or I hope that I'm able to communicate better with my children, and that might be the first step to actually then finding ways to communicate better. Hope is the essential element for me to find meaning and purpose.
Yeah. I feel like hope is like a can of Start You Bastard. I used to love working on the farm as a uni student, because I worked as a farm labourer for a couple of years to help pay my way through uni. And the old diesel Massey Ferguson tractors that we used to drive around always needed like half a can of Start You Bastard to get them going in the morning. And I reckon hope is like that for a lot of us, where if you've got hope, you can sort of get started.
Yes.
You can get out of bed. You can pick up the phone and ring that problem customer. You can face your ex in a tricky conversation about, co-parenting or whatever might be going on. And I really do see a lot of people that when they have hope, they can actually just make a move back towards their purpose or their meaning or their why. And I think to deny that hope is an important part of motivation and action, I think it's a bit sad, actually, and I think it's dangerous.
Mm.
So that was a convoluted disagreement that we agree on.
We tend to do that. There's actually something very interesting that we can dovetail into the back end of this episode, seeing as though it is a Tuesday episode.
It is a Chucky Norris.
Yes, it is a little. And we're still not going where we were talking about, but we can maybe do that for Wednesday's episode. But often if you and I have I'm not going to call them disagreements, because I don't think we have disagreements, but if we disagree on something, or we have differing opinions on something, it's often because of the way we've communicated to one another. It's not necessarily that we're actually opposite in what we're thinking or talking about. It's often that the words we've used around trying to communicate our message haven't landed the way we thought they would. So I wonder how often in some of these critical conversations we're having, either with staff or with partners or with clients, if it's simply that our message isn't landing the way we thought that it might, and therefore it appears that somebody's disagreeing with what we're saying, when in actual fact it could be a whole lot simpler if we could find a different way to explain it. Because often when you and I have those points, it will take some time. We come back and we try and explain it again, and we find a commonality and a way forward. It's pretty rare you and I have totally differing opinions. It does happen. Pretty rare. Usually
off air.
Always off air. Usually it's that we've thought about it from different angles, even though the end goal is the same. I'm not sure if I'm really languaging this very well. But I wonder how many, when we're talking about losing hope because life's tough, shit's happening at work, the staff let you down, you're arguing with the missus or the mister, the clients are upset. A lot of that can be just brought back to communication and those conversations that we're having, and maybe they're just not converting the way you thought. They're not maybe explaining the point. And I think the other thing that we forget all the time, and as a parent of young men in particular, I see this actually, I'll call my daughter out here as well, she's the same, they often aren't telling you what they think they're saying. In their head, they feel they've communicated really well that this is my issue, mum. But in actual fact, they've only given you 3 sentences about a much larger problem. And I wonder how often in our communication with others around us, both in our team, our clients, and our life partners, whether we're just not communicating the entire message. Not only is it not landing well, we haven't told them all the other balls that we're holding in the air when we're talking to a partner, or we haven't explained all the conflict that's going on with the job to the staff members so they get a better understanding of where our heads are at, or we haven't been clear enough in our communication with the client about their expectations and managing their expectations, and we're setting about this whole trauma of conflict and I guess what feels like failure in our lives, which can take away that hope, which can mean that hope is really hard to feel or find. And I wonder if we came back to thinking about our language and how we talk and what we're actually saying, and have we thoroughly communicated what we're trying to say, if that would be enough to help us find a little bit of hope. Okay, I don't think I explained that very well. I'm going to go tomorrow, find my staff member and try and explain that again in a way they can understand.
Yeah.
Maybe finding hope is as simple as coming back to our words and thinking about how we use those.
Yeah, and there's so many ways to do it, Coxie. But just, if I hope I do better next time, then that means there is a next time and I can actually have another go.
Yes.
If I hope tomorrow is better than today turned out to be, if you're listening to this at 11 p.m. or something because you're ploughing through more paperwork and today was another one of those custard days, if you hope that tomorrow is a little bit better than today, it creates a little crack in that brick wall that I can't go on anymore.
Yes.
With whatever it is. I don't mean in a catastrophic way necessarily, but it's just, I think weekends give a lot of people that hope just by default because they take a break, as we started at the front of this episode with me having a break over the weekend. And you and I spend a lot of time online. You certainly spend a lot more time in social media than I do. And that can get very hard to be a part of, 14, 16 hours a day.
It's a heavy
7 days a week in reality.
Yeah, it is. It's a very heavy space to play in. And I don't think... Sorry, go on.
No, you talk over me.
You. So we keep talking over the top of each other again. But hopefully the quality of the sound is far better for you, listener, because that's what this experience is about. You as a listener, not me as a talker.
Yes. So I think those little gaps, those little pattern breaks just allow us to look down at our feet and say, oh, there's some hope there. I might pick it up today. And that can be the beginning of a change. We've seen some of our members, in particular our drawing board members, who came to us almost out of hope reserves. And certainly some of them at the point where they could see that there was hope on the ground at their feet, but it's like, no, I can't. Matter of fact, I don't even think it's real, that hope, that possibility. And we've seen those people especially and their businesses, and I don't want to sound like I'm overstating this, but they've literally transformed themselves, their marriage, their business in 90 days, 3 months. And I really feel like that just came from them not so much talking to us, Coxie. I mean, you and I create the space with that particular product and that membership level, but in talking to other people in the same place or have been in the same place saying, yeah, I know how you feel. I was there once, and you know what? I found a way to bend down and pick up some of that hope, and holy crap, things started to change.
I don't think there is a single thing more validating than being told by a peer that they've been in that space or they understand that space or this is how I got out of that space. I don't think there's anything more validating than understanding you're not alone. And I think as business owners, very often we think we're alone, and particularly as trade business owners, we don't share a lot of this stuff. Trade business owners are not particularly good at being vulnerable and putting their hand up and saying, this is the shit I'm going through right now. They're not great at being able to share those feelings, and therefore they're not getting the validation that they so desperately need, because we have all been in tough spots. And in our drawing board in particular, we get to share those tough spots. And if we're doing really well at the moment, we get a reminder of how hard it has been at various times. And even better still, we get to help share the tools that we use to get out of that space with our fellow board members. Or if we're the one in that tough space, there's a real encouragement within those groups to share where we're at and what's going on. It's part of the structure that we put in place so that it's a comfortable, safe space to do so. And watching the relief, I can't get over it. A lot of what you and I do is sitting back and observing and helping steer and direct the ship. But to sit back, it is such an honor and a gift to sit back and watch the relief washing over their faces when they realize, A, I'm not alone, and B, oh my goodness, I've just been given 3 different ways to get out of this space that I'm in at the moment. I've just got to find what fits best for me.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal.
Oh, I feel like I get more out of facilitating our drawing board sometimes than our members, because I'm just sitting there feeling ridiculously satisfied. Is that the right word, Coxie? Fulfilled for these people who are getting this shift and change and growth. And, you know, to read comments from tradie wives saying that their husband is now doing this and he's changed this behavior and he's agreed to do that, and she's been trying to get him to do it for years, and that they're communicating about things without arguing and, you know, having regular meetings about the business. And that's now giving hubby time to actually, you know, pick the kids up. And it's just, that's the stuff, you know what, gives me hope, Coxie.
Yeah, very true. Me too. And we want to give you a whole bunch of hope, listener. This week, we are having our very first ever online 90-day planning session. Did you see what I did there, Warwick?
I almost, there was a little bit of sick in my mouth, Coxie. That was so
good. But we're running, look, this is something we normally reserve for our drawing board and tradiepreneur members, so our very high-level members. But we've decided, as a go and get stuffed to the first half of this year, we're open it up to everybody for free. You don't even need to be a trade desk member for this. You can just come along, enjoy your 90-day planning session and say goodbye. But, you know, the best thing is you're going to come out of it with a tool to help navigate through the next 90 days and get your own fantastic results in your business. Now, all you need to do is go and find us on Facebook, search Tradies in Business, and you will find the events section on our page, and you register there. That's it. We do the rest for you. We'll send you some emails. We'll send you a booklet. We will get you prepared. And then on Friday from 1 p.m, so that's Friday the 26th of June, 2020, for those of you listening later, bugger, you missed out. Sorry about that. But those of you that are listening now, this Friday, 1 p.m, join us and a bunch of our members on a Zoom call. And for 3 hours, that sounds intensive, but we are going to take a break. For 3 hours, we're going to take you through where you're at, where you'd like to go, and how to get there. Simple as that. I'm going to help you put the steps in place so that you can start to walk towards where it is that you want to be. And that can be anything. It doesn't need to be huge. We're not asking you to 10x your business. We're asking you just to come and make some healthy goals that you'd like to achieve over the next little bit. And I'm going to help you find a way to put those single steps, action steps in place so that you start to walk towards that. So please come and join us. You must register. This is a live event. There'll be no replay. If you can't make it, I'm sorry. We can't redo this one. There will be another one in September. However, it will be for members only. So this is the one that you want to make time for in your business. Great if you can get your partner there as well. Please don't come alone. Well, you can, but it's great if you can be there. And we're going to finish up with a little networking session and some drinks. And basically, that's just a good opportunity to pay out on Warwick, which we seem to do every week. And he was going to eat this world's smelliest fish, but we can't get to it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm really disappointed.
I'm sure you're not.
That COVID means I can't eat stinky fish yet. But I'm pretty sure Lydia is going to make sure it happens. So
shout out to Lydia, who's my
Shout out
new
to-
favourite member.
Lydia is such a champion.
Lydia is a champion. She's doing a great job.
And only our tradies and business champions know what that means. So we'll
Takes one to know one.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be anointed as a tradies and business champion.
Very.
And Lydia is definitely one. So definitely, as Nicole said, get along to our online 90-day planning event. TIB140 is the Gen Y millennial tag for it.
Almost sounds like an Olympics or something.
TIB140, yeah. It's going to be cool. It's going to be sick. It's going to be rad. And we're going to help you find some hope.
We will.
Hope for the next 90 days.
We'll even give you the roadmap to find hope, like the big hope.
Give you the steps, the step-by-step process to finding hope. That's really terrible.
That's just shocking.
Anyway, check us on the Book of Faces, and we will come at you with another episode, I hope, tomorrow.
Have a great day. I hope you find some hope in your day.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Tradies in Business podcast with Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesandbusiness.com.au.